Hey listeners, welcome back to episode 7 on females doing cool shit. Super excited to be here and bring you this episode today because I have Steph here from OceanZen Bikini and OceanZen Travel. I met Steph, we actually were on a panel together last month and we spoke all things sustainability and how our businesses bring, I guess, love to the planet and to community. So Steph, tell us a bit about yourself, introduce yourself, tell us who you are because I fell in love with you last month, so I know my listeners will.
So I'm Steph. I'm the founder of OceanZen Bikini and OceanZen Travel. And the swimwear brand is a sustainable swimwear brand, so the fabric's made from recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets from the ocean. And the travel brand is an adventure bucket list travel brand for women to basically do cool shit.
And live their best life.
And
see the world.
Mm-hmm.
I see some of the things you put on Instagram, like, I want to be there. Don't you have one coming up in January?
Antarctica, yes.
Yes,
yep.
I keep looking. But then we'll get into this more, but I was scared because you were like, you sleep in the ice.
For one night.
I was like, what? Can I just like climb into someone else's sleeping bag and sleep with them? Or
that's just like a one-off optional activity.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And you sleep in these sleeping bags that are like set for like minus 27 degrees. So in Antarctica, it only got to minus 6 degrees that night. And you kind of like, you lock yourself in so all the hot air stays in. But I got too hot, so I actually slept with my head out and woke up freezing. So,
wow, breathing all the cold air, your cold nose, everything. Oh, awesome. I love it. We'll delve deep into that. So outside of your business, who are you? Like family life, like what do you like to do? Like you as a person? Because I know that sometimes when we do have a business, it becomes our identity. So who are you?
So I have a deep love for the ocean. I love snorkeling. I love scuba diving. I love being in nature, hiking, traveling. Traveling lights my soul up in so many ways, exploring new places, new cultures, changing my environment. I absolutely love it. And I'm so lucky now that with OceanZen Travel, I get to sort of do that at the same time.
Yeah, that's your job. How cool is that? That you get to go and live this life. It's amazing. I love that. So how did you get into it? So OceanZen Bikini, when did you kick off that business and how did you get into it? Because, you know, sustainable bikinis, they're everywhere now and you were the first one in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yep. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you get into that?
So I guess taking it back to when I was 20, I grew up in Sydney. I grew up in the suburbs. I never really had a connection to nature or the ocean before. You go to the beach on weekends, but I didn't grow up surfing. I didn't grow up with that sort of activity based around the ocean. So when I was 20, I ended up living in the Cayman Islands, working on a luxury catamaran, working with wild stingrays. And I had never had a job like this or done anything like this before in my life. It was absolutely crazy. For all my friends back home, they were like, what are you doing?
What do you mean like working with them?
My job was to like dive down and like lure the stingrays up to the surface and hold them. Big stingrays, yes, they had barbs and everything, but we were feeding them as well. And then tourists could get their photos with, touching a stingray. So it's obviously not ethical now, but back then that was the thing. But that chapter, connecting with these stingrays, I learned to scuba dive, I learned to surf, I learned to snorkel. That chapter really was the beginning of the next 15 years for me. I developed this deep love for the ocean, so much so that I came back to Australia and I was adamant I wanted to go study environmental science at uni. I'm not academic at all. I'm definitely more creative, but I was adamant I wanted to save the ocean. And that chapter at uni, I really had to push myself through that degree. Like, I'm not science-based. I struggled through chemistry. I struggled through all of that. And I also really struggled working for other companies where they would tell you, you can't work, you can't not take weekends off, and you have to work over the Christmas holidays, and you're stuck
in there. Yeah, like you have to work every weekend, and
school holidays as well. And I was really frustrated with that. So I had discovered this fabric made from recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets from the ocean along my travels years before. From a yoga company in the US, but I had never, ever thought that, you hear about it, it didn't stick, came back a few years later. I just remembered that and I was like, why don't I start a swimwear brand? So I looked into it.
Wait, this is while you were at uni.
I was at uni.
Facing chemistry at uni,
Yes.
you're just whipping up a bikini brand.
Mhm.
I love that.
With $5,000 savings. That's what I started the swimwear brand with. And I found a factory in Bali that produced swimwear and that helped with the design process. Then I went over to Bali over the uni holidays and over like December, Jan, and worked on creating my first collection.
Wow. And you just launched.
And then I just launched. I had no fashion experience, no business experience. I wasn't even studying this at uni. I was studying a completely different degree.
What year was this? Do you remember?
I did my degree in 2013.
Okay, so social media was present.
It was present, but it was definitely like, I mean, Instagram was a big part of OceanZen Bikini success, but it was all new. Like Instagram was just sort of up and coming.
Fresh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so incredible. And you just started and launched, and then where to from there? How many lines did you do? Is that what you call it? How many?
It's been like 10 years now, I would say. 2013 was the first year that when I've registered my ABN, it was registered in 2013. But I don't think I launched straight away. I think collections take a little while to produce and manufacture.
Do you do like a collection per year?
One collection a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was always wanting to do slow fashion and ethical fashion rather than like producing, like a lot of brands will do like 4 collections a year per season.
Mass
and
produce.
Also small business, it's
financially not doable.
Not doable.
Yeah, you want to sell everything that you make.
Yeah, so it was 1 collection a year and would always launch that for like spring, summer.
Did you sell at local markets?
No, I only sold exclusively online and then towards the end started to do wholesaling as well. But yeah, not so much the market side. I really wanted to keep the brand, I don't know what the word is, but I guess I wanted to keep it a little bit more exclusive. Yeah, that's it.
Did you have your like warehouse in your garage, or were you like a
Yes.
warehouse? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so that's where we would pack from. And obviously throughout the years, the collections would get bigger and therefore the invoices would get bigger and then more stress obviously would come with that. And eventually that is probably one of the biggest challenges that I face with OceanZen Bikini. The larger the brand, the larger the invoices, the larger the collections. There was one photo shoot where I spent like $10,000 on one model just to shoot. And, then you need the best makeup artists, you need the best videographers and photographers.
Costs.
And, as the brand grew this visual identity, you've got to keep matching that and then getting better and better. So yeah, the one photo shoot, one model cost me $10,000, which absolutely hurt the bank account. And then, you're paying invoices of like 50 grand here and 50 grand there. And eventually the cash flow was the biggest stress for OceanZen Bikini.
Managing that. I find that in my business too, particularly now that I've got 3 locations, trying to I know it all comes into one bank account, but trying to see them as separate business structures and try and see, okay, is Noosa actually going okay? Is Koana going okay? Is West End going okay? Not just seeing it all as one lump of money in one business together. It's stressful.
Yeah, congrats on West End. I was about to say congrats on
OceanZen.
Congrats on West End.
It's so cool.
Woohoo.
It was so fun being there last weekend. I love the space. It's amazing.
What other destinations? Oh, that's my travel business.
Destinations. Let's go
What
there.
other
Gold Coast.
locations?
I really want to do Gold Coast.
Nice.
And then I'll just kick back for a little bit, I think. And
Byron?
I've thought about Byron. I actually put a poll on Thrifter Instagram, and heaps of girls wrote, please come to Byron, please come to Byron, please come to Byron. So I know that when I go to Byron, there's a lot of op shops and it's like, the market sense and all that kind of stuff is around. But hopefully move down that way.
How exciting.
So tell us, you OceanZen Bikini, 10 years, loved it, lived it, breathed it, paid 10 grand for a model, love that for you. Then what happened? Like where do you go from there? You've learned all of this. You're in the world of the rag trade, basically, in fashion and sustainable fashion, and you grew to be such a big brand. how did you go from this into OceanZen Travel?
So with the swimwear brand, my identity became very much attached to OceanZen Bikini. More so, not from my doing, but the media in Australia went nuts over this story, this small town ocean conservationist launches big brand made from recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets from the ocean. That, like, the hook of what the fabric was made from became
everywhere.
The essence of OceanZen Bikini. That was the story. And, from there were opportunities to speak at events. So I'm also not a public speaker. And all of a sudden I'm, one event in particular had 1,000 people. And, I'm getting up there and I'm meant to be telling them my story. And, I was very much thrown into the deep end of business, fashion, public speaking. I never said no to opportunities. I kept moving forward, but it was definitely, it definitely became my identity, and it has been very much hard to let go of, because I'm so much more than OceanZen Bikini. I'm so much more than any business, and that has been a journey to sort of establish that within myself.
A lot of business owners really, really struggle with that, and I know that I have too in the past, letting go of teaching or letting go of past business ideas and structures of it becomes who you are, then to transition and go, okay, actually this is a new chapter of my life, and accepting that and going, this is okay. It's a big step.
Huge step.
Yeah.
And I think as well with OceanZen Bikini, I didn't believe that I was enough without it, which was really, really sad, actually. I had to do a lot of self-worth work to realise that I'm worth more than this. There is more to me than OceanZen Bikini, and
you are more than your business.
You are more than your business, and I guess this identity crisis happened more so in the last few years because the travel brand happened really organically through OceanZen Bikini as well. And I never thought the travel company would turn into its own separate entity. It was always just like, it was always just part of OceanZen Bikini as like a one-off trip to Tonga every year to swim with humpback whales. And then obviously the world shut down 2020, couldn't go to Tonga to swim with humpback whales. I always dreamed of doing more destinations, but I was always just so utterly consumed by hustle mode of this swimwear company. I was always hustle.
So you talk about this hustle mode, that you were stuck in this hustle mode. How did you ever hit rock bottom?
Multiple times, especially when I was receiving these large invoices, just having to problem solve and figure out how the hell am I going to get myself out of this mess now? It was a constant chase of like, how am I going to get myself out of this now, get myself out of it, and it happens again. The travel company launched really organically. I was running trips to Tonga from 2017 to swim with humpback whales. I went there in 2016 to go on a holiday and shared it on the OceanZen Bikini Instagram page, and everyone was like, how can I swim with whales? And then I was like, cool, I'll bring you to Tonga with me next year. So that's sort of how the travel company launched. And then 2020 hit, obviously can't leave the country, can't really do anything, but Queensland was open. So that's when I started to run trips to the Great Barrier Reef, and it just took off. And then slowly, as Australia started to open in other states, went to Nigaloo Reef, sail with Sundays, and then now that the world is fully open, have just gone to Antarctica, Galapagos Islands, have lots of other plans to go places next year.
I love this. This is so. And is it just women that come on these trips?
It's mostly just women.
Yeah.
Men are welcome. I've only ever had one guy come to Tonga to swim with the humpback whales, and one guy come to Antarctica. I think it's just mainly because the travel company launched from the swimwear company, the audience is already female, so I don't think guys really hear about the trips anyway, but it is usually female. It is 99%.
And how many women will go on these trips?
Anywhere from, I had 23 in Antarctica, but anywhere from like 12 to 15.
That's incredible. And do you find places that obviously have a story to tell. Like with Antarctica, there would just be so much around like global warming and the world and all of that kind of stuff. Like, do you link it to sustainable like practices, or is it more so that you want to show off this incredible, beautiful place of the world?
It has to be bucket list. It has to be a place, like you won't ever see OceanZen Travel going and running a city tour in Europe. It's got to be a life-changing destination, an experience based around nature, wildlife, not necessarily snorkeling or just ocean focused. Like I would love to run a trip to Africa. It's been on the bucket list.
I'm going to be in hustle mode paying for all these trips in a minute.
Literally, I have so many girls that come like 6, 7, 8 times. They just do all of their traveling with OceanZen Travel. And that's special. It's a really beautiful community. All of these girls have come by themselves and they've just found themselves. They've found other women with a common interest and a common passion for living your best life, essentially. And so the destinations definitely have to be I guess I want people to come on these trips and feel like their life has been changed. You know, leave your everyday life back home, come away and experience a phenomenal life-changing experience, connecting with penguins and connecting with sea lions and whales. Like I almost feel like now I'm making more of an impact through OceanZen Travel than I ever was with OceanZen Bikini.
You speak so passionately about it. Like watching you speak about OceanZen Travel, you're speaking like from the core depths of your heart. Like,
I love it.
And that's probably why.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as a business owner, if your business doesn't have purpose, doesn't create change, like that's when you sort of go, oh, what's happening here? Like I'm not really that, not saying that the bikini business ever did this, but you lose that passion. Whereas like if you're making that change with these women and connecting them to nature, like that's beautiful.
It's life-changing. And I feel like as well with the swimwear brand, so the fabric was obviously made from recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets from the ocean.
Doing so much for the planet. That's amazing.
And I was passionate about that. But I feel like, you know, in my 20s I was all like, you know, don't use plastic, but it's so much bigger than that. When you bring people on these trips and they're connecting with these animals eye to eye, and then they go back to their life, back to their city where they live, they feel something that they didn't feel before. Whereas when you're just posting out a bikini that's sustainable, they're not really connecting with that. Whereas these trips, they're going to remember these moments for the rest of their life, and they're going to go home and make life-changing decisions, whether that be around sustainability or whether it be quitting their jobs or moving states or...
Like the impact is real.
The impact is real. People are finding themselves and discovering parts of themselves that they never knew existed, which, circling back, this happened to me when I was 20. I didn't know who I was when I was 20, and I grew up in the suburbs of Sydney, and then all of a sudden I went travelling and ended up in the Caribbean, and that just changed the course of my entire life. And in a way, these trips are that course for people.
That's so beautiful. I love that. So we spoke about hustle culture with your business, with your bikini business, and now in this new chapter of your world and your life and your identity, what do you do now to support your mental health? Like, is there anything that you do when you're feeling burnt out? Because as business owners, we all feel burnt out. You'll never meet a business owner that ever says, yeah, I've got all my shit together, because that is not fucking true.
Lies.
And if they do, then turn around and walk the other way. What do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or just there's a lot going on? Did you learn any lessons from being in that hustle culture and hitting rock bottom, as you said that you have before? What did you learn there, and how do you move forward from that?
So in my 20s, I was definitely very much in my hustle mode. I wasn't really listening to the signs. I just wanted to succeed. I had this I needed to prove that I could do this and that I could be successful and that I was worth something. Now that I'm in my 30s, I very much know that I'm worth more than any of this stuff, these businesses. I'm worth so much more than that, and I'm not even attached to them anymore. But I definitely feel like in my 30s, I'm slowing down. I'm trying to honor honor where I've come from and where I am and not be so critical on the failures. They're all lessons. In terms of hustle, so in January this year, I had done Antarctica, Galapagos, Japan, Nigalu Reef, and Heron Island all back to back. I had crossed multiple time zones. To get to Antarctica, I went up through the US.
Traveling alone is exhausting. Even traveling to Bali and you're packing your suitcase and going for a week, it can be draining whether you're enjoying your time or not.
Yeah.
Like you're going on these beautiful trips and having the best time with all these incredible women. It's exhausting living out of your home.
Yeah, and then always having to be on as well for all these guests. They're all such amazing people. And, at the end of the trip, everyone's crying because you've had these beautiful, profound connections with these women that you would I think a lot of people that come on these trips don't even expect that part, the connections. And they're so deeply moving. And I had just finished the Perth trip. The girls had gotten me this beautiful gift. Everyone was crying. I finally had a moment to myself at Perth Airport. It was the first time. I don't suffer from anxiety, but it was the first time I could feel I was out of my body and my heart was racing, and it was just pure overwhelm. And I ended up breaking down at Perth Airport in front of everyone, people walking by.
You were on your own?
I was on my own. I had told one of the OceanZen girls where I was, and she had found me, and I just collapsed in her arms. I was just sobbing. My knees were uncontrollably shaking. And I was drooling, crying. It was not, for me to get to that state, that's so unlike me. And even when I had gone through all the stress of OceanZen Bikini, it never had gotten that bad. And I think, I don't want to say it was an anxiety attack because I wasn't really anxious about anything, but I was very much overwhelmed and exhausted. And I didn't know how to process all of these emotions that I was feeling. And health-wise...
it's okay to sit in the mud though. All of those moments, where you feel like it's just all too much and you just have this huge breakdown, even though in that time you're like, this is shit, I feel like shit, what's happening with me? Those moments are actually so good for us. So good for us.
Well, essentially because that was such a shock to me, and I guess I've never felt so out of my body. It was like I was watching myself and I had no control over my fingers, my hands, my legs. It was scary. So basically after that, I've had a couple of months off, really trying to work on my health. I've been doing a lot of detoxing, cleansing, meditation, grounding with the earth, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, not trying to be on my phone late at night, and really just slowing down and listening. And funny enough, since that, I've lost a whole ton of weight just from
cortisol stress,
letting go. I was also diet, holding, when you're traveling so much, you're eating all these foods you wouldn't normally eat, not sleeping well.
You've been nourishing yourself and looking after yourself. See, sometimes it does take to hit rock bottom. When I say that those moments are good for us, they're not great. We don't want them. But when we find ourselves at rock bottom, it can completely change our future and lead us to a much more sustainable and beautiful life with ourselves and connection with ourselves. For you to go off and change, feel more grounded with the world and eat good food and lose all this additional weight and let go of these things, that's pretty powerful.
I think as well, the lesson for me there, I wish I could blame someone for booking my schedule the way that it happens, but there's only me to blame. Moving forward, I have to prioritize my health and myself above this. And no matter, a lot of the trips sometimes do end up back to back because sometimes when you've got large group bookings, you can only get what the suppliers give you. But now I need to problem solve. If that's the case, I cannot do 5 trips in 5 different destinations back to back, let alone 5 different time zones. So,
because that's bringing you back into that hustle culture of next one, where you can really strip it back. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very vulnerable story. And I think that's why I truly started this podcast, because we all find ourselves as women and men, we all find ourselves sometimes in these moments where we go, everything's just too much. And being able to share that you've learned a lesson from that and how you moved forward focusing on your health and what you do, like the listeners, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So, Steph, thank you so much for being here today. I just love you. I adore you. And I think, you know, sharing your journey over the past 10 plus years, that's massive. How do people, if a woman like me, I'm definitely coming on a trip. If there is a woman out there who would love to come on one of your trips, how do they get in contact with you? How can they find you? Do you have a website, Instagram? How can they connect with you?
OceanZen Travel is the Instagram, OceanZen for Nelly. And then OceanZenTravel.com is the website.
Do you have like trips throughout the next 6 months up there ready to book on the website? Or
Yeah, so funny enough, I was literally just saying that I won't do trips back to back, but come August, there are a few trips with a few little gaps in between. So I'll be making sure that I honour myself throughout those mini gaps. And then we're going to the Whitsundays in mid-October, Tonga to swim with the humpback whales in September, January going to Antarctica and Galapagos Islands, Northern Lights next year. There's so many...
Northern Lights?
Stop it. The Arctic.
I am there. Oh.
We're going to go try and find some polar bears, hopefully.
Oh, I love this.
I think a lot of people think there are polar bears in Antarctica, but they're actually in the north, in the Arctic, not so much the south. But they're not at all in the south. I shouldn't say not so much.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Oh, I can't wait. So I'm coming on a trip, and I know that my listeners will definitely be coming on a trip because a lot of the girls that listen to this are local business owners and they're women. And I know that we tend to feel burnt out a lot of the time, and going on one of your trips could just help us reconnect with ourselves, other people, and obviously to the earth, which is amazing, and animals. So thank you for coming on today. I adore you. Thank you for tuning in to episode 8, and I can't wait to bring you my next guest in episode 9.